But we are going to be jumping into game one draft for this grand final. And boy, oh boy, am I so excited to see how this is going to go. What bands do you potentially expect to see here, John?
I think Doom could be something that you look to ban out, although again, T1 doesn't necessarily just base all their bans off of a Doom pick, and they haven't picked it up recently. I think it's a big aspect of what T1 falls back to if they feel like they need to play it safe, they need to play it to their biggest playstyle, and that Doom for mid on Carl is a big one. I think some wildcard factors has to be taken care of from T1 as well. Like, we saw the Raid King pick, and it went offlane once more for Cuckoo. It's just scary when Cuckoo gets to pick those offlaners. I think that's something that Boom hasn't ever had to adjust to. Maybe not the first phase ban sort of material, but certainly in the second phase, maybe in the last phase of bans, it's something you have to consider here, because T1 tends to save that Cuckoo hero for last. And as we mentioned, it's almost like a fight of the offlaners here. When FBZ gets shut down, he feels bad. When Cuckoo gets to get off to a running start, he just gets to enable Gabby, connect with his pause one, and let Carl also just build up and just snowball on top of Boom.
The OD and Shadow Demon bans coming out from Boom. What direction do you think T1 are going to take reacting to those bans, Mike?
I think you've still got some pretty great options. Like, we've seen Tide a lot, so they go down the Lion route, but I could imagine a Tide second pick coming out here for T1 if they wanted to go down that route, because Tide has just been crazy popular and just crazy flexible. That being said, Boom might just go Snapfire Tide right now, and I think that wouldn't be too bad, but no, never mind, they'll go down the Conquer route. So I suppose T1 could take it, or maybe just nobody touches Tide.
Yeah.
DP? Sorry, you go, John.
Yeah, it's really flexible how Boom is opened. I agree with Mike, that Tide is pretty high impact. I think T1 has room for it, especially with a line. Like, they could still pick Tide, maybe try to run it on 5. I don't think T1's a team that really goes back to a Tide support. It is a possibility, though, but the way Boom opens up is just going for this really aggressive duo already. Like, having Death Prophet, more than likely our Schem heroes we saw last time, and having the Yopaj Kunkka come out means that it gives T1 maybe more room to ban out, say, FBZ heroes, Jackie heroes in the second phase, but you already secure a strong lane for Boom, and some flexibility as well. It doesn't have to necessarily be Yopaj mid Kunkka. If the matchup is really bad, you could still fall back to a mid DP. Now, me and Mike talk about Yopaj mid DP a lot, and neither of us particularly like it, because it's not really the big playmaking hero for Yopaj, but in the rare occasions he is forced to run it, it still does deliver the goods. I think for Boom, it's likely we will stick to the Kunkka, but there's also still the off chance, and that could be our Jackie hero safely. Not the most common hero for Jackie once more, but again, something you can flex in T1, instantly take that Carlina. So you already have great burst, you've got a great mid lane matchup to work with if that is the Kunkka mid. I think Boom's going to have to really think twice now about where do you want to run these two heroes.
Yeah, I really appreciate that Lena pick, right? Because we talked about kind of just beating out your pages in the mid lane, and I think Lena's just one of those heroes that doesn't lose mid. And Carl's known to play a very, very good Lena, so I think this is a great way of T1 just kind of ignoring your page now, not having to focus on him in the drafting phase, and being able to just focus on those side lanes instead.
Where did you say, sorry, John, that the Kunkka could potentially run to?
It could still be, say, a Jackie safe laner.
Yeah.
Just if that matchup is really, really bad for Yopaj. And Kunkka Lina isn't the worst. You could still play with Tidebringer, but the Lina with the threat of LSA, the Dragon Stave, the right-click trades, it doesn't feel amazing for Kunkka. So I think for Boom, there is a way for them to still give Yopaj a very strong lane up against Carl by shifting that Kunkka away. I just don't know if that's comfy for Jackie, because again, I think we've seen it maybe once from Jackie while he was in Motivate Trust, and it can still do work, but it's not that farm-heavy core that Jackie's used to. It does have to be more active, so that could cause Boom to be in a very uncomfy position in terms of finding their playstyle, with Jackie taking a more active one. And I think T1 just got a good read from that first phase. Like, not only do you have a great lane matchup, you have so much burst with Lion Lina. You've got Finger, you've got Laguna. Even with the boat buff coming through from the Kunkka, and even with a DP and sustained fights, you have enough instant burst with these two heroes from T1 to take care of that early on.
I guess it is going to come down to potentially what T1 pick is up as their carry and the reaction that Boom are going to bring out from there. But with so much burst as well, Mike, you kind of like Tide before. Does this maybe deter you a little bit more from picking up Tide, having a Lion and Lina?
No, never. I think Tide's just good no matter what. I think if you have the option to take Tide, just take Tide. For Boom, though, I mean, I guess you might end up running a POS 5 DP as well, so it could be... Tide's pretty flexible, though. You could still fit it in, so I think Boom could just easily take it. We've seen Tim's play it as well on the POS 4 role. It's certainly very open, but it's banned out now, so I guess it doesn't matter anyway, because T1 don't want to see it.
They're on the same train as you, that Tide is just a really good pickup no matter what. So let's make sure it doesn't happen. It doesn't get picked up. And they're kind of doing, not the complete opposite, but a little bit opposite, where they're like, okay, let's not do what SMG did and just fully focus on Yopaj, something that you wanted to see, Mike. And so with these bans, is it something that is potentially taking away comfort from Boom, or is it something that you see potentially leading up for a T1 pick?
Yeah, no, I appreciate the bans from T1. Like, they get rid of the FBZ Mars, potentially the FBZ Tide. The TA obviously very powerful in the current meta. So I appreciate the fact that, again, they're just focusing on those side lanes right now. Maybe the TA, I guess you could have flexed mid, but it's kind of whatever right now. It's just a very strong pick. What I'm more intrigued is in this Vengeful Spirit pickup is something a little bit new here from Boom Esports. Something we haven't got to see very often, and I'm kind of curious where this goes and what it does.
You know, Mike, I've got a very wild idea.
Oh.
What if
Don't bring
Boom...
up the circles.
No. What if Boom went back to the SMG draft where they run offlane Venge with a pause for Alchemist? What if they just do that? You've got great Ags upgrades to just give onto Yopaj. It's not something Boom does. And it actually sounds pretty terrible.
It
but
does.
the possibility is there. I mean, I don't see much room for the Venge. Pause for Venge doesn't feel great. It's not really lane dominant as a support. It doesn't rotate that fast. It lacks mobility. So you're going to have to walk your way around. Your stun isn't amazing. It doesn't scale too well. I think they might run it as a core. In that sense, you only have really off lane and safe lane for Venge. We have seen Jackie Venge safe lane, but it's been literally a year or two. Like, that hero is just not in meta for the safe. So maybe an FBC event, it just doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right in any position. Like, a Tim's Venge also doesn't feel like it play makes enough in the 4. So I'm just curious what they do, because that is very left field. I mean, you have Swap to kind of force people in bad situations. You've got Swap and X. So you've got a lot of ways of keeping these heroes from T1 still. But look at T1. Like, they've got the Magical Burst with Lion Lina. They've got a PA with Physical Burst now. They've got the Nyx to kind of bully out that Kunkka with all of his AoE damage. Even the DP, to an extent, doesn't enjoy that. And it's even more versed with a Vendetta hit. So I think T1's really got this insane bursty lineup just to counteract sustain from the Kunkka and the DP. And I'm not seeing any answers here from Boom.
Yeah, I really like it. I think this draft from T1, it's so aggressive. And, like, Boom have already kind of got this idea with their draft, I think, where they're going to go for those early T1s with the DP. But T1's going to be able to fight very early on. Like, once you've got those level 6 marks, their draft can just get going. And Gabby on the PA, I mean, we've seen Gabby play this PA as a masterclass almost, right? Like, he's just fantastic on this hero. I think this is a very scary draft for Boom Esports to go up against right now. I think there's just way too much kill potential from T1. And even when you look at the lanes, John, and Nat, they're pretty safe right now.
Oh, yeah. It's just... I just don't know what the Venge does. Like, I think that's where my confidence is lacking. Like, you already revealed potentially your support duo here on Boom. Because, again, flexing Venge's core just doesn't feel outright amazing. I mean, you still have the Ags to play with. You have a lot of minus armor. Now they go for the Faces Void as well on Boom. So this is interesting. They've got the Faces Void up against Gabby's PA. That matchup can go back and forth. The Void has some better scaling towards ultra late game because of Chrono, but you kind of have to itemize against that PA as well. Your farming pace up against PA is kind of 50-50. It feels like the PA, once Battle Fury is up, is definitely going to eclipse a Void, but the Void can jump through camps with Time Walk. Laning is a little bit more stable there. If that is our Jackie hero, you can just kind of Time Walk around. Level 1 to level 3 cooldowns feel atrocious, so T1 still has a window to play aggressive. And again, they have so much stuns online on Nyx. We have yet to see our Cuckoo hero as well, so I think they can still manage that Void. I'm really not sure what Boom is trying to go for. Like, their combo with Faces Void here, their circle combinations really just Torrent and Boat. And maybe Exorcism from outside. You've got to swap, I guess, if the Void doesn't feel great. I mean, you don't have any real swap potentials in the Chrono because you've got the Void on your side. I don't know how to feel about this. This is very different from Boom, and I think T1 are just playing to their strengths more than Boom is to their own.
I think the idea is like Void naturally enjoys getting doing the MKB rush against the PAs. So I think maybe that's the concept here from Boom. But I agree with you, John. I'm kind of worried about Boom Esports right now. I don't have much faith in this Void either. So I'm with you, John. I'm with you on this one.
How does DP go as a potential pos 5, right? Sorry, as a pos 4, because maybe the Venge goes that pos 5. Like, I definitely see what you guys are saying, that it's really hard to just locate where some of these heroes are going to go to be strong.
I think you'd rather have the Venge 4 in comparison. I think you'd get a lot more value. You can build up towards the Ags. You can get maybe a Solar Crest if need be. Atrial Lens for longer range swaps. You're just allowed to itemize more, whereas the DP doesn't really need much. Maybe you just really want a Yules. And you're kind of happy on DP just getting level. So if they do run these two as supports, I would definitely prefer Tims on Venge rather than DP. We've seen Scam DP already. It does work out well. It still doesn't alleviate any of those issues in lanes. Like, thinking about a DP Void lane, it is durable. It doesn't have too much forward aggression, and I think when you just look at T1 and where they can put the line, where they can put Nyx, what Cuckoo here they close out with, that lane is still much more painful coming from T1. If they just time their stunts properly, the Void's not going to have a window to time walk, and you can still easily punish these two heroes, especially level 1 Spirit Siphon doesn't feel great, so the first two levels are definitely in T1's advantage, and now they have the Viper as well. So piling on the magic damage, piling on this early momentum with PA to scale, even Alina to scale, this is a scary lineup from T1. They don't have much teamfight control in comparison to, say, Chrono and Boat, but you don't need it. You've got Line, you've got Lina, you've got Nyx, you have so many stuns anyway. You don't need all of that big area control because these supports will just pressure so hard.
I'm with John on this one. You look at those lanes as well. Like, it's how do you win any of these lanes? Like, maybe the safe lane of T1 could be a little bit open to take, but the off lane with the Viper, chances are you aren't going to lose that. Mid lane with Alina, you're probably not going to lose that either. Yeah, I mean,
very slim chances.
Yeah, exactly right. It's tough. I'm looking for what Boom's going to choose as this last pick to try and maybe just round out this draft a little bit, but it does feel like their draft is very greedy in comparison to what T1 has, and if they don't at least even out these lanes, I feel like they're just going to get run over here.
What is the tempo of T1's draft looking like to you, John?
Just hit level 6 and start running down. I think your first two levels are also really strong. Level 2 Lion with potentially Hex Earth Spike is big. Nyx level 3 is the bigger one with the Impale. And I think you can just run there, like at that starting point from the lanes, just get going. Boom close out with the Legion Commander coming out, so they do have some Dispels on hand. It still doesn't play in with your Void too well. You don't have, say, natural LC combinations with your own burst on hand, so winning duels early on is a tough call without Yopaj around. You have some good synergy with minus armor. I don't know. It looks very different from what Boom tends to draft for that mid-game momentum. This is much more late-game oriented, and I think T1's ready to just keep fighting from 5 minutes in towards the 25-minute mark. I think that's the big window where T1's just stronger with their heroes.
And Mike, can you at all reason a potential window or timing spike for Boom's lineup here now that you see it completed with the LC knowing where all of the heroes are going to be going?
Well, I mean, look, late game against the Void, it's always scary. Like, going into that Chrono, it's always going to be amazing. So I think Boom do naturally have to just drag this one out past that 30 to 40-minute mark. That being said, though, Gabby's PA gets probably even more scary. So it's kind of hard to use that logic here in this game one. Yeah, I mean, if they can drag it out, if they can get that farm on Jackie this game, they could probably get it done. But I think Jackie's got a lot of pressure. You want that Maelstrom for the farming item, and then you want an MKB straight away, and that's not going to be too easy to farm against the draft that T1 has. So it's going to be a hard game.
It really is, and it's definitely looking like a spicy game as we have some interesting drafts coming out. But MLP and johnxfire, please take it away for game one of the grand final.
Well, thank you very much. Now we'll get into it. Game number one of this best of 5 grand final between T1 and Boom Esports. And John, it sounded like you and I were both kind of leaning towards the draft of T1 at the end of that. Nat did ask me, is there any timings Boom look for? Do you disagree with my point, John? Do you think that Boom just naturally has to drag this one out?
Yeah, no, it's as you said, Mike. It's the late game Boom we're looking for this lineup. You might look to play around, say, Yopaj level 6, level 7. Might be a good point with Scam hitting his 6 as well with Exorcism so you can push out. But up against T1 zone bumps at that point, it's not enough. It's so much burst, it's so much control coming out from the side of T1, and I don't think Boom has a draft to counteract it. Again, they go for this really slow draft. It feels like, I think Parker pointed this out earlier, Mike, where Boom has been drafting around Jackie more. And this is definitely a very Jackie-like draft. Almost a Motivate Trust draft, except a lot slower, where they're emphasizing their pause 1 more than mid. Right? They want the Void to be big. They want to farm him up. They've got these 4 heroes that can sort of fight around and push towers by themselves while the Void tries to build up. I just think T1's got the antithesis to that. You know, they've got the entire counterpoint there, all the burst on hand. Like, what will a Void need here? You're going to need the MKBs you pointed out. They're going to need a BKB at some point. They're going to need some damage on hand. And it takes so long for a Void farm. It's not like you're going to build Battle Fury on the Void as well. And
Right.
Gabby's going to have good Battle Fury timing just from the lanes. Right? He's going to hit that Battle Fury spike. He's going to outform the Void. And that's what's scary for Boom. They need to scale towards late game, but their mid game is just looking pretty shot. They've got to play this one really well with this draft, Mike.
Yeah, certainly so. I mean, the one saving grace I feel is Boom did go for that last pick LC, and I think that's going to have a lot of emphasis this game because you are going to have the press the attack against all the control that T1 has. And I think that was going to be one very scary factor here for Jackie on that Void is if you cop an Earth Spike, a Hex, or an Impale, you're probably just going to melt to the damage output of T1. At least they have some way of purging those stuns up or that control up and just allow Jackie to be able to do what he needs to do. But we'll see how it all pans out. I mean, game 1, there's a 5-man smoke already from T1. They do get some deep wards down around that mid lane, and it does seem like they want to try and force that level 1 team fight. Nobody from Boom Esports really going to be around here, though, to try and contest these bottom bounty runes. So T1 is going to give up on that and actually just go back for the bounty runes. It's like Boom understanding their level 1 timing is pretty weak, so they'd much rather not try to fight into that. And that's probably just going to occur all the way up until the laning stage is over. And, well, again, probably around that 20 to 25 minute mark is around where Boom would feel more than comfortable to start fighting. But we'll see. You know, it also depends on how well of a game Skem has on this POS 5 DP. Maybe if they get a nice level 6 timing on him, they'd want to get into that mid-tier 1 tower and start pushing down those objectives. I guess they could still set a pace here for Boom. I mean, it is Boom Esports. You never really know with this team.
Yeah, they still have some avenues for aggression. I think for them, it's going to be off the back of Yopaj, and we'll see how much he does get out from mid. We are looking at a bit of a tri-lane start here from Boom. So they bring Jack Boys up front with Skem and Tims around, and they're looking to shift lanes. So they're dodging out the Viper lane for the Void. So they're relieving some of that pressure on Jackie, and they're going to apply a lot of pressure onto Gabby, but he's also alone. So it's an opposing tri-lane as well for T1, looking to pressure out FBZ, and we'll just have to see who lines up. And if you think about that control, Mike, T1 has a lot more if they clump their heroes up.
Yeah, I mean, Whiteman's going to TP up with Gabby, so they're just going to give up on that tri-lane. I love the fact that Boom did go for the tri-lane and just throw Jackie in the off-lane instead, because, that's like you already said, against the Viper, you're probably not going to win out the lane as Void, so FBZ will happily just solo it on his own, and well, chances are he can just secure CS with the overwhelming odds and be able to use that press the attack to get away every time. I wonder if Boom, though, if they keep up this tri-lane, like, even with the 3 heroes, it could be rather difficult to set up for an actual kill, though they are going to try perhaps right now, but no. Tims does not bother throwing out the stun. Maybe you wait for those level 2 timings first, but again, even at that level 2 mark, I think it's still going to be rather difficult to be able to secure any kills here for Boom in this offlane.
I mean, you're very slippery on PA. You've got Phantom Strike by level 2. Scam's going to need maybe a Silence to secure that kill, and they only have 1 stun on the Avenger, unless you get lucky with the bashes. So it feels like this entire kill potential of this tri-lane is dependent on RNG, and that makes it tough. Still got a chance to look at the other lanes. Trading back and forth here with Yopaj and Karl, and this is a lane that we expect Karl to just get a lot more out of. Yopaj can play around with a Tidebringer, maybe bait out with a Torrent, but Karl has a much more forgiving time. You know, LSA is easy to land against melee heroes for the most part. You've got really good right-click advantage there, and Yopaj is going to have to really play around his tempo on Tidebringer and really secure runes. We might have to see Boom try to get an early rotation out to help Yopaj contest the 4 and 6 minute runes, but with their supports, again, it doesn't feel like they've got the supports to really have that presence there.
Yeah. How's that bot lane going? I mean, FBZ is still around. Zephyr looks like he's trying to find an impel right now. In fact, never mind that, because top lane there is a bit of action breaking up, but no, never mind. They're all going to be fine. And bot lane, they try to stun up FBZ, but they won't be able to really secure the kill, as FBZ just proves to be a little bit too tanky. So both side lanes getting a little bit aggressive now between these two teams, but nobody really dropping a life yet. Both T1 and Boom very careful to give that first blood away to each other. So it's much more important for T1 to be able to secure that first blood, as you'd almost expect them to with that draft. But again, I suppose Boom is still also running a tri-lane here in this offlane, so you could make the argument the other way as well. They might eventually just give up on the tri-lane, considering Tim's, he's already started rotating into that mid lane now. Might try and go onto Carl in the mid. Meanwhile, Jackie, those in trouble top laners, they do jump the void, and it looks like they might just have him, but no, Jackie, he will be able to time walk away, as Carl's going to be the one to drop mid lane. They leave Jackie behind, but they knew he was going to be just fine. Boom Esports able to claim first blood in the mid.
And that's a big rotation out. And we kind of talked about the sports not having much to play with. They still managed to make it work with Yopaj having that value point in the Exo. They can lock in. They're getting a lot more now from this mid lane, which is exactly what you want to see. Although Carl is still leading by a good margin on CS, but that kill will definitely help Yopaj bounce back. I think for T1, it's unexpectedly a very slow game for them. Like, they aren't really forcing the issue with their Nyx line duo. They're not looking to just play double stun, find easy kills. FBZ, as you mentioned, Mike, very hard to kill off with press the attack, even if they stack those stuns. So I think despite Boom maybe having weaker lanes, T1 aren't pressing the issue, and it's all down to that lane swap. I think that lane swap with Jackie versus Gabby is actually helping Boom out a ton. Like, your Void is finding some very stable farm in comparison to Gabby, and that's not good news for a hero that wants to get a really fast Battlefield time to fight early on.
Or even bot lane on, like, Cuckoo on this Viper, he hasn't really had the most impact. Like, Skem's rotated now on the DP, and it's one of the things about the Viper, right? Like, you really want to have that really dominant lane, but FBZ's done a fantastic job of just keeping up. Now just freely CSing on that Legion Commander, and that might be a pretty big issue here for T1. I was expecting a bit more of a dominant start here from the Dire, but it hasn't really been the case thus far. Hell, even Jackie on the Void's been farming pretty decently. He's been ahead of Gabby on that PA, and I suppose you could contribute the tri-lane to the success of this offlane for Boom Esports, but even then, Gabby's still a little bit behind. They might try to go in now on Jackie, but he's going to be just fine. Spot lane, they're still just trying to chase down FBZ on that Legion Commander, but he's also just fine. So I think T1 now you just accept the fact that the lanes didn't exactly go as planned and just start securing that farmer.
Just keep building up. I think for T1 now, they're going to have to maybe focus in on getting Carl enabled. Arlena starting to lag behind in levels. Does hit 6. So you've got the Laguna. You could maybe play with that. Look for a support rotation or rotate out yourself. But I think they need to start piling some resources up. We aren't seeing any stacks coming out yet from T1. They've been too held up in the side lanes. There are some good sentries out. Carl will find a small camp. But the large camp is still blocked off as well, so Boom still has a good grip in that. And in comparison, Boom's own triangle is built up more with Avenge. Very low committal to build that up. I think down the line you will be able to farm up. Some fight over the runes here, but Scam does get the deny. So no top up coming out for Carl. He does have the Soul Ring to play with, but Yopaj is looking to go forward a bit here.
Yopaj will move in. Does pump fake the X, but never really throws it out onto Zephyr. Wasting his time, as you've got that Spy Carapace available on the Nyx Assassin. Still a very quiet game thus far. 6.5 minutes in, only one kill occurring. Looks like Carl is now rotated into the triangle, accepting the fact that he's a bit behind the Kunkka and just not going to be able to contest much longer. And speaking of the devil, Yopaj, down to the bot lane he goes. Onto Cuckoo. They'd love a Viper kill for themselves. They've got the X into the boat. FBZ's got the jewel up as well. They'll just wait till he gets nice and low, and in fact, never mind. Yopaj. Oh, yeah, that was a bit early, Yopaj. I think FBZ wanted the jewel damage.
For sure. And maybe just not expecting that much burst onto the Viper early on, but they get that rotation running. And they get a good kill. There's not much pressure coming out from T1. While that movement's up, they are grouping up top, maybe looking for that opportunity onto Jackboys, and they will jump in.
Yeah, nice start out into the follow-up Impale, and this is kind of what we're talking about. Just so much Disable available against the Void. And unless you have that LC right behind you, chances are you are not going to be able to get out as Jackie. So a very important kill there for T1, and it's going to allow Gabby to start really taking over. And it goes back to a point we were talking about, John. Jackie's already going to have a very hard time farming up the items he needs to be able to take on Gabby. He's going to be quite a whiles away off that Maelstrom timing, and if that's going to take a while, that probably means the MKB is going to take a while.
And that's not good news, because he's your big physical answer for that PA. A good scout out here from Zephyr as well, spots out the stacks. Can't really clear. I think T1's going to have to drag in the Viper or the Lina to really secure that area. And it's at the point where Boom might be thinking about clearing it out in the next minute or two. Still, Yopaj in a good position to look to play aggressive over these runes here.
Well, he's trying to use that Tumbler's Toy to break the gap to get the X back onto Carl, but he'll have to settle for Whitemon instead. Just go for the Lion kill. Only one he could really reach. But Whitemon gonna go down. Yopaj to pick up his second kill of the game already. Carl very narrowly avoiding death as very lucky Yopaj only had the level 2x at the time and just wasn't within range.
Yeah, they managed to avoid a bigger loss. I think it's still pretty painful for T1. Like, that entire movement forces Zephyr to pick up the illusion rune. So Carl still doesn't get a power rune of his own. Not like the illusion's a big one, but this forces him all the way back to base. He's going to miss out on farm in lane. He's not clearing out the triangle large camp, which is still blocked. And the side of Boomer just getting a little bit more value from that movement. So you're finding a pretty decent start here for Boom, despite, again, the more aggressive lineup of T1. I think the next point for T1 is level 6 spikes on supports. Once you have Finger up, once you've got Vendetta up, that's when you can really start running around, playing with a burst, and that's when Boom needs to be cautious. We need to see some investments in sentries once Zephyr is very close to the 6, and we need to start seeing Boom maybe try to take a more defensive stance at that point. T1, though, seemingly satisfied. The Cuckoo, despite that slower laning start, just holding the bot lane, keeping FBZ tied up. He doesn't want to leave this because it will be pushed in. But they're just not getting their money's worth from the Viper yet. It's like you said, Mike. Cuckoo's not able to entirely zone out FBZ. Even though that farm isn't ramping up fast, you're also not building up in the Viper and denying anyone else here.
No, certainly not. It's even Skem on that DP, just infiltrating that Dire jungle, and we see Skem do this a lot. Like, after that laning phase, he likes to just move into the opposing jungle and just start annoying the enemy POS 1. Just taking their farm away with that Crypt Swarm, and doesn't seem so high impact, but it really is as mid lane. Who have they gone on? It's going to be Carl on that Lina. The TPs are there, though, to try and help out Carl. He's going to go down anyway as Skem is able to pick up the kill on the DP, and he will happily give his life away if need be. But now they turn right back around. Skem's tanking through it. Torrent is going to land from Yopaj, but that's going to be it. A 1-for-1, but certainly in the favor of Boom Esports. T1 trying to rotate to help out, but even that didn't help.
I'm surprised Boom are allowed to get away with these pickoffs, Mike. Again, their support duo doesn't have the best set of controls. They've got a silence and a very non-scaling stun on the Venge. It's still enough, and it's all off the back of Yopaj maybe lining up these torrents, getting the X's off, massive range for that. Now they're applying pressure on mid. Not what you'd expect with a Slime. They've got the Exo on Skem, so they can get some substantial damage on here.
Oh, they are doing a great job with this draft here. Boom Esports forcing T1 again to try and defend. Zephyr's going to rotate, but the Sentry Ward does scout him out, so they'll go in for the gank as Jackie. Even going to join in on the Void. He does have Chrono. Zephyr still not dead. Tim's still chasing him down, but the Urn's still taking him out, and he will die eventually. Nice little pick off and a T1 mid tower to drop. Boom Esports just playing this draft to absolute perfection thus far. T1 unable to respond at the moment. Doesn't seem like they're able to keep up with the pace.
Again, very surprising. They've got great laning stuns. They've got some really early timing heroes to play with tempo, but they're opting to take it slower. You are building up in Cuckoo here. He's getting some decent farm in the free lane. Dragonlance almost up. Man, there's going to be a very tanky Viper to try to burst down, but you are giving a lot of space out to Jackie. Like that Viper, it felt like it was just directly countering the Void lane. They never switch lanes to kind of slow down Jackie, so I think you're at risk. You do have a good gold advantage for Gabby in comparison to the Face's Void. Battle Fury only 2 parts away, so you're still getting some good tempo out from your bigger win conditions on T1, but you're not slowing down Boom. And I think that's the big strength of T1. They've got the capability to get that slowdown, to get the burst. They've got level 6 up on Whitelaw now, so they've got Vendetta. They've got Laguna and Finger. This is the point where T1 needs to start going for smoke plays, looking for those pickoffs, taking the map, and forcing a push off the back of those kills, Mike.
It's very surprising this far, and I agree with you, John. I think they should start making those rotations with Whitemon, because, I mean, Jackie's getting very close to that Maelstrom timing now. Gabby's still a while away off that Battle Fury, and I don't really think you want to allow Jackie to get that Maelstrom up. Still, FBZ is going to get ganked up here as Zephyr is there with the Impale. He did get the Presti attack off in time, and he's going to try for the TP play, and he might just make it, but no. Cuckoo barely getting the damage in. Very ballsy play there from FBZ. Almost working out, but not quite.
That's a 4-man rotation for the Legion commander, though. And that's a lot of heroes to commit. It's still a good pickoff, but the space Boom is getting out is substantial. Again, Jackie's left alone. Yopaj is building up. He's going to have a very fast BKB here, Mike. So all of that burst we were talking about disappears. All of that control disappears with Yopaj having that spell immunity. And I think that's a great build-up for Boom. You know, it will just allow them to play faster. It will allow them to play with one big core up front to enable Jackie to just farm away from these fights. And this should allow Boom their own moments to kind of jump around more aggressively now. Still, T1, they've got their own smoke out here, Mike. They've got no Vendetta, but they have the Finger. So they can still look for the burst play on someone they catch here.
On smoke, though, John. Gabby's been left behind down at the bot lane, and they just go right in for the chrono. No playing around. They want that kill, and they're going to get it. And that top smoke that was there from T1, it amounts to absolutely nothing.
Yeah, that's massive. Yeah, we were talking about Gabby. You were pointing out that he still needs to finish up that Battle Fury. Further stalled out. Again, they haven't been able to build up stacks either in that jungle. Good blocks coming out from Boom with a smoke rotation as well. And they're still on the aggressive. They've still got big spells to play with here. They've still got both. They've still got the X. They only really used Chrono, and that's not much.
Nice start from Skem. That'll get Zephyr with the X out into the torrent. We'll get the Spy Carapace off, but it won't matter too much as Skem's still going to move in, as now the BKB is going to be popped. Japoi, he'll get one kill down, and now Cuckoo, he's trying to come in and take out Skem, but Skem is surviving. He's a Giga Chad. They'll eventually take him down, but the Jewel is there, and that'll be a first bit of Jewel damage out for FBZ, and another kill out for Yopaj. And T1, they cannot catch a break this game this far. I mean, net worth isn't too far behind for T1, but in terms of the plays, Boom Esports are just all over them.
Yeah, they're just playing really aggressively on Boom, despite, again, maybe lacking more direct stunts. Doesn't matter. T1 aren't finding any angles. Their smokes aren't amounting to much, and they still need to stall out. Like, I think the big issue now for T1 with this state of the game is that you're going to be looking at a Lina and a PA who are going to need to farm. I think Lina is also a scaling hero. It doesn't want to necessarily just sit back, constantly play make. You have that early BKB up for Carl as well, so he can do that, but you want some farming on this hero. You want the travels up. You want the protection of the Linkency skewing up. Down the line, you're going to want that Silver Edge for damage. And that's space he's going to need. They are trying to shove in bot, but looks like Boom are ready for the defense.
That they are. Yopaj is in with the torrent and the boat. Carl, though, going to be forced to BKB up, but FBZ trying to get in range for the Jewel is going to be unable to get it. Still, they'll force the fight. Zephyr trying to back off, but here comes Jackie. He'll join his team. They really want that Nyx Assassin dead and should eventually be able to chase us. In fact, never mind that. They're going north up to Cuckoo and the Lina. They've got the Jewel out onto the Viper. Cuckoo's in big trouble with the Laguna Blade out on FBZ. It's going to be enough in the Ember. Carl's gone down. Tim's takes the kill, and now Cuckoo. He will closely follow behind. They got FBZ, but they're going to lose 3 for that. And once again, Boom Esports will come out on top of the team fight.
How do they keep doing this? Like, they just run in. I think the issue for T1 is it feels like there's a disconnect with the support team. Like, you're not in a good position to chain stun in a big way with the Earth Spike and the Impale. And you could easily just get 3-man lineups. This is like dual melee running up to you with Yopaj and Jackie. And you can kind of cut them off, but you're not able to. In fact, it's a triple melee core lineup. Right? You've got LC, Kunkka, Void, all very susceptible to long-range stuns, like the Earth Spike, like the Impale. But T1 aren't able to use it aggressively. It's always been responsive. It's Boom smoking up. It's Boom forcing the moves out. And they didn't even have to pop Chrono there from Jack. It was still on a bit of a cooldown. And they make it work. 3k lead up for Boom, 11-5. Now T1 are getting good space out for Gabby. Battle Fury up on the PA. And this is the moment now for T1 to kind of just lay back. They can play as 4 heroes, but you have got to give Gabby all the space he needs. Very well protected in that top jungle there, Mike. No forward wards from Boom to spot him out. So at the least, your PA is going to get that scaling, but it's a worrying sign when somehow Yopaj is 2k gold above Nat PA and Lina here.
Just classic Yopaj things, John. Some things just never change with this man. So looks like Boom are going to group up top lane. I mean, they've got that level 1 exorcism once again for Skem, so it's a nice easy tower to just go ahead and take. T1 are going to do the exact same thing down at the bot lane. Try and focus down their own bottom tier 1. If they do, that is. I mean, Cuckoo and Zephyr don't feel too safe doing it, apparently. This Boom will just go right ahead. No worries from the Radiant side of things. And now TPs are coming in from Boom. It seems like they want to try and fight at that bottom side of the map as Tims is going to be there, and now more TPs coming out. Wymon's going to get caught, and that's going to be one support to drop as they even chase for more now. Cuckoo's still running, but there's your blink out from FBZ into the duel. They've got the Viper locked down, and Cuckoo knows he cannot get away. Boom Esports again just rushing T1. Gabby and Zephyr, all they can do is run from this. They know they can't take the fight yet.
Yeah, it's just so aggressive. They had really great defensive wards here from Boom, so they spot out Whitemon, immediate TP out from Skem, and they're still not done. They have Chrono to play with here in Jackie.
Oh, Gabby. They saw Gabby for a second. He'll try to meld to blink away, but Jackie's got both of them in the Chrono. He's got everything he could ask for into the Torrent boat, and Yopaj will clean up. Get the brooms out, because Zephyr now, he'll be the third. Carl's going to try and help, but I'm not sure about that, Carl. He's run right into the whole side of Boom, but can they lock him down? It looks like they just may, as he'll BKB up, but FBZ's got another duel out onto the Lina this time. Another victory for Boom Esports. T1, they cannot do anything. They can't do anything, John.
They just can't fight. Like, Boom hit these early item spikes, the quick BKBs on Yopaj, the lane swaps early on, really enabling this. And now they just head straight to Roshan. That was spotted out by a ward. They did have a good ramp ward here from T1, so they know if this is happening. It's happening too fast. Lina's not up. You only have Cuckoo who can run up. You do have at least the Earth Spike and Impale, but it just doesn't feel like they've been able to use that well.
Miscommunication perhaps as Cuckoo's just run right in by himself. He may get bursted down. Skem meanwhile again just tanking all the spells and all the damage. Skem just doesn't care. They can throw everything but the kitchen sink if the man still won't die. As Whitemon thought he was out scot-free, but that is not the case. He'll be X'd up by the idol, and that'll be another kill for Boom Esports. 20-5 now with a 7k net worth advantage. How do you come back from this, John? I mean, surely eventually Gabby gets online and T1 are able to push back.
They can get back with their PA. Gabby is lagging still a bit behind Jack Boys and Yopaj. My worry in that sense is that your other heroes are kind of shafted, or, you know, they're kind of scuffed. Their farm isn't up there. Like, Carl has a BKB, hasn't progressed past that, still waiting for travel, still waiting for Lincolns. Their top is being pushed in, and they can't do much. Cuckoo's standing by with a Nether Toxin. It's level 1. It can't de-shove a wave that fast, and Jack Boys is on the hunt.
Yeah, they want the kills. I mean, FBZ's got that blink available, but it is on cooldown. Still Jackie moving in, but Cuckoo's been spotted out. Jewel is there immediately as FBZ. He doesn't care about the extra damage. He just wants the kill, and he'll get it. Fourth, oh, how many kills for Jackie? 6. 6 kills for Jackie now on this Void. We had a lot of doubts about this draft from Boom, John, but they are proving us wrong once again.
This is kind of ridiculous. You know, the times we see Void work out is almost always with Chrono combinations. We see Kisses, we see Jakiro with a Macropyre. You have nothing besides Torrent Boat here, and it still works out.
Gabby's in trouble, John. Japoy's found him. Torrent will be there, but does he have the follow-up? Gabby might try and fight back, but does Blink Strike away as Skem's going to move in with the Exorcism, but T1 successfully... Oh, I don't know about that
God.
TP, Carl. I do not know about that TP. Does get caught, and that is a big swing from Yopaj, as now they'll dive into the T2 tower, forcing the BKB out. Meanwhile, Whitemon just trying to help, but he can't get anything done, as Yopaj just cleaves him apart. They're forcing everything. I mean, at first, I thought T1 successfully forced the Exorcism from Skem, but they're still going to move into that Tier 2 mid tower, and they're still probably going to find an objective.
This is just terrifying. Like, Yopaj with his full Silver Edge just does so much damage, and that break is going to ruin Gabby's day if he does show up. Just the aggression. Boom is just constantly aggressive, and T1 are all too split up to react. Like they're showing cores in the lanes, trying to get farm, and Boom just punishes with her jump ins every time, which is again surprising. I guess the big issue now for T1 is, despite all this control, we don't have a blink on Whitemon. So our Lion doesn't have that instant initiation to turn these fights around. And we mentioned it early on in this game, like, but Boom has been very disciplined with sentries. They've got a lot of sentries in the parts of the map they are playing in, and now they're still on the hunt. They're looking for Gabby up top.
Can they find him, though? They're going to try. Gabby to get away with the meld, but it may not be enough. The blur is going to wear off now, and Jackie can move in, and you've still got that chrono if you do want to commit, but they'll wait out the duel instead, and that's going to be a nice easy kill as Jackie. He's having a great laugh to himself here. It's very rare you see the voice lines come out from Jackie, but he's brought him out today as now Carl is in danger again, even with the BKB, the damage output. Oh boy, 13 kills for your Page. I mean, this is just a stomp of a game one, John.
It's insanity. Like, T1, it just felt like they got all the counter picks. They got all the timings for an early game, aggressive start. And it still boils back to that lane swap from Boom. One simple lane swap to have the Void versus PA, and T1 never switched out. I think if they just applied more pressure onto that Void while it was weak, you know, like level 1 time walk's atrocious. You don't have much room to jump away from the Viper's magical damage. You don't have enough time to run away from the chain stunts on the line Nyx. You might have been able to get that early momentum for T1, but now it's a farming game. Now you're forced to play a farming game, 10k behind, building up in a PA, trying to catch up on Lina. But there's not enough space on the map to enable that, and that's where T1's draft is going to struggle. Just enabling a Lina, enabling a PA, two very greedy cores on the offset, where Boom is just all over the map. Like, they are literally just running forward and forcing fights every minute. They have not rested. More than a kill per minute there, Mike.
Oh, it's just unbelievable here from Boom Esports, and it kind of goes back to the question Nat asked us, right, before the grand finals really started, about whether there was going to be some fatigue here for Boom. But John, you can just feel the momentum right now. They're very happy that they're feeling that energy, and well, whenever your Page is on 13-0-9, John, you know it's going to be a good game for Boom, because they're moving into that mid-tier 3 tower. Chrono's up. BKBs are up. I don't know if you can stop them. They've even got another minute on that Aegis. I mean, T1's got to try, but it's a very tough ask to defend this tier 3 tower. Perhaps if they just miss out on having a creep wave, maybe they could delay this long enough and the Aegis might expire in time for Boom to back off. And it does seem like they are going to retreat. So they get a bit of damage into the tier 3, but they're not going to overextend. They'll be more than happy with that, and they'll just take over that dive triangle.
Get to steal away the camps. T1 are still stuck on the high ground. They're not in position to really jump outside their base. They will go for a smoke play. So this is the moment of truth. If they can get their chain stunts off, if they get the right hero pinned down first with the burst they have, they still can find these kills, especially if the BKBs simply don't turn on for Boom. Issue for T1 is they're going in a bit blind. Their only ward was up top. It's already gone. So they have no clue where Boom is, and they're just going to miss out. Whereas Boom, they've got a very good ward in the triangle. They're smoked up now as well, Mike.
Oh, they're going to force the fight with the chrono from Jackie in the front line. In fact, never mind Skem. No, it's going to be Jackie. He wants that big chrono. Zephyr, though, is going to break the smoke. As they see Whitemon, chrono's not there yet. Gabby has not been spotted within that blur either. So they'll just go after the line with a nice duel out from FBZ. It's going to be an easy pick off. And that'll mean 70 duel damage now for FBZ. And I think now with that line down for 20, you may as well at least try to force the buyback from Whitemon.
Yeah. It's not too much time, so I don't think Whitemon's going to be forced for it, but they'll lose a lot of space on their own high ground. They need that line stun. They've got to blink up on the Lina, so there's some play potential here for Carl. But something's got to give. They've got to do something about this high ground push, because it's just constant from Boom.
Well, they might just back off after the tier 3 again. Just no rush here for Boom Esports. They understand how powerful of a position they're in right now. So again, if they hold that triangle, Gabby's going to have a very tough time trying to keep up here with Jackie. Certainly falling very far behind at the moment. And again, Boom Esports might just go high ground as Tim's maybe looking for a bit of a swap here with the X back. Looking for Cuckoo and does get it, but how do you hold him down? Answer is you don't. Cuckoo lets him know about it. I guess nice try from Cuckoo, but doesn't really pan out for the side of Boom.
I like that play though. It's a cheeky one that you don't see too much. Having the protection of X for an aggressive swap. Oh,
Jackie. Don't think he wanted to throw that chrono out just in case the blink was going to be there. Now T1, another 4-man smoke. Again, the vision game is really not around here for T1. All they can do is try to get Jackie, who is farming a creep wave at top lane, but he's going to back off in mid lane. Cuckoo may get caught out this time as one hit out from Yopaj. And that'll get it done. Cuckoo just gives the tip. He doesn't know what to do.
That is such a squishy Viper. He's got Dragonlance BKB, Mike. He's got some strength in. He's pinging it out. 1.8k to the Viper on a 1.7k HP hero. What can you do, man? What can you do? Yopaj just has to. He's level 20, and Cuckoo's still level 14. Like,
yeah, I mean,
it's too much.
Yopaj is going for one level per minute right now. John, screw the 1k gold. Who cares about that? We're going for XP this game. It's Boom Esports are right into that mid lane. Zephyr's going to try and slow this down, but he's going to be very wary of his own positioning right now. He does not have, or rather he does have buyback, but he's one of the only ones on T1 that does. It's Boom. They'll take the mid racks. Again, no rush here for the Radiant. In a very, very powerful position, Boom are. So they'll back off and give a bit more time for themselves to just keep that net worth lead going. Now, you look back at Gabby, John, the farm's not too impressive right now. I mean, Battle Fury BKB is nice. Without the Deso, though, you don't really have that much damage, even with the crits flying up.
No, definitely not. I think, considering that Gabby's and T1 in general has had a pretty slow game, him only being about 1k behind Jackie is actually pretty good. It means he's actually keeping up pace with Jackie's own farm, considering how little of the map T1 has. That's a good sign for T1. Is it enough yet? Not quite. He's going to need way more than just the Desolator here. I think you're going to want to see Gabby with his Ags, his signature pickup on PA, just to have more Blur opportunities, more Phantom Strike opportunities, and safer farm flying out with lower cooldown on Blur. But that is still a pipe dream. It's still ways off in farm. And again, Boom aren't resting at all. They're still looking for aggression. They're still running around. Next Roshan, about less than a minute. So that's going to be the next thing they take. If they find a win in this fight, easily transition to next Roche. Another set of racks on the high ground.
Oh, Gabby, don't farm that creep wave, sir. Do not touch that creep wave. He does back off. Still, team fight to break out. Into Dire's side as Whitemon. Gonna get caught out, but no, he blinks away in time. Instead, Jackie will move on to Cuckoo as Yopaj will take care of Whitemon. And the Viper, he's just going nowhere. Yopaj is still one-hitting people, by the way, John. I think Whitemon just got hit one time by Yopaj and he just disappeared. And now, for Boom, they could go Roshan, I guess, very soon, as it is up in 10.
That was a really big career kill on Gabby as well, Mike. That was his 2 mithril hammers for the Desolator. So no Deso for 2.5 minutes. One item he's been farming for the past 10 minutes for, gone. And that's a big window for Boom now. As you said, Roche is back up. They are still looking to fight instead. Lines drawn by Yopaj. He's not resting. He doesn't want Roche. He wants a kill.
Oh, Yopaj 15-0-9 at the moment as he's going to find Gabby farming up, just waiting out that blur, but he's going to blink towards the creep wave. In fact, never mind. Now they know exactly where he is, and Gabby, spider legs up. It's not going to matter. The jewel is there. They've got the breakout, and the boat to fly in. Meanwhile, Roshan has started from Jackie, but he was trying to do it, well, not by himself. Well, kinda, I suppose, as Zephyr was trying to interrupt, but he may get punished himself for this. Zephyr misses the impale, is going to go down, and Roshan will be continued by Boom. GG.
You call it.
They've had enough, and I don't blame them, Jonathan. 30-5, 13k net worth lead at 30 minutes in. I think T1's draft just failed them, and or rather they failed to execute the draft, and that was it. They just know they had no comeback.
That was just such clean gameplay out from Boom, though. Like, we expected T1 to have that strong draft. They had Lion, Nyx. Sure, it might be a greedy support duo, but we've seen Whitemon, Lion, we've seen Zephyr, Nyx perform so well before, and I think that's what we were looking for. Stronger lanes coming out. They run a tri-lane. Boom had such a great read on that game. They put Jack Boys up top to play against Gabby instead, avoiding the Cuckoo Viper, avoiding all those stuns. And T1's response was just to not shift lanes. Sure, the laning start for Boom is a lot slower. They weren't really being as aggressive as you want, but their lineup was never meant to win the laning phase. They held out. They give Yopaj this really great lane. He didn't lose out mid. I think that's a big aspect as well. We saw Carl and Yopaj trade almost evenly on mid, so the Lina didn't have this overwhelming start, and Yopaj just set the pace. Once he had higher points in the X, that's when we saw Boom running around, and they just did so much work. I mean, I'm just amazed Boom managed to even get that done up against the draft of T1.
Just a fabulous start here to this best of 5 grand final for Boom Esports at the very least. And well, again, John, it does feel like they are feeling the momentum right now going into this best of 5. That'll be a 1-0 lead so far, but there is potentially 4 more games to go of this grand final. So we're going to head to a very short break, and after that break, we'll be back with our panel to discuss what happened in this game number 1. See you there.